All right, welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm your host, Connor, and my co-host, Jaden,
Yee.
and our producer, McKinnon here,
What's up?
and then former guest, Calvin, as
Thanks.
always.
Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah,
Forever.
you're never going away.
Yeah.
All right, and we are talking about Lighthouse tonight. I think we mention it in like every podcast we've done so far, because we just kind of have one person gone, or we haven't gotten around to like getting the whole crew for it. But we finally do, and I'm very excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah, those few that have been with us, listening to us tease this
The
for-
faithful,
for
yeah.
months.
The faithful fans.
Those veterans.
We keep talking about it, but yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this.
Yeah, me too.
There's I think varied opinions in this room right now, and so I think it'll be fun to.
Don't
Yeah.
worry,
To
I'll,
kinda pick
I'll
into it.
convert you all.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I disagree with you right away.
I agree. I don't know what the opinion is yet, but
I
I,
don't think
already
so.
agree.
So I think real quick, we wanted to get Jaden's like kind of first impression of this.
Right off the bat, I did not want to watch this fucking movie. It's in black and white. This is fucking 2021. We don't need to be doing that. But first watching it, I actually thought it was cool. It was like a puzzle trying to figure it out, and then I watched it again. It's like, if you ever sit down and do a fucking frustrating puzzle and you finally finish it, and then like you don't ever want to do that again. And that's like the way I felt watching it the second time.
That's great. Because
Yeah.
what's even better is you probably you didn't even do the puzzle, right?
No, fuck no, that's for sure. I was definitely jabbing pieces in where they did not belong. But I was like, it's done, so I was over with it.
I put all of the pieces I could find on the
I
board.
cut the edges, dude, for sure.
I like that analogy a lot.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle. I did it wrong, but I got through it. I like that a lot.
I proudly display it on my wall.
Yes.
Yeah, so I am just stoked to be talking about something that isn't Avatar.
Yeah.
And it's
It's just gotta get brought up. It just has to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
and especially a film like this that is such a great narrative, so well acted, so well designed, and with such deep mythology and symbolism. There's just so much to talk about, and I am so excited. I love this film. And so I do want to know, like, this was when we brought this up, I wasn't sure how. I kind of thought, I was pushing the boundaries. Like, let's see how far I can push what I can get on this show to talk about if these guys would be interested in seeing a film like this. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear what y'all thought about it.
Y'all.
Yeah. So I think the idea of like black and white is kind of gimmicky now, and so I knew this movie when it came out, and it was getting nominated for all kinds of awards. So I knew it was like a good movie, but I was like, I don't like really want to watch this because it seems like kind of pretentious artsy because it's like it filmed in like a smaller aspect ratio and it's black and white, and I was like, but after watching it, it's like the Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are so good in it that I was like, it doesn't
The
really
acting
matter.
is fantastic.
No.
Yeah.
And so all the kind of like really pretentious stuff that I thought of the movie right off the bat, I was like, it's okay because it serves like the movie. It serves to like get these actors together, and they are really good in it. And so, I mean, if anything, I just like the movie because they are really good together at like driving this story.
Yeah.
And so that's what I liked most about the movie. After watching it, it really lends itself to being black and white. Like this movie, I think would kind of suck if it was in color now, and I think it would kind of suck if it was like widescreen.
Yeah.
Just the tone they have for it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that like it's easy to assume that a color movie would just be better by default because that's all we see nowadays. But it is interesting that like if it was in color, it would probably suffer.
Yeah, like I know Zack Snyder, when the Snyder cut of Batman or Justice League was coming out.
Batman's in it though. So.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, I wanna change the aspect ratio and I want it to be in black and white. And Warner Brothers was like, no, that's crazy, because that movie does not lend itself to being black and white at all. Like this movie worked in black and white, I think, because all the film techniques and everything, they tried to shoot it like it was like that period anyways. I think it gets really pretentious when you're like, oh, I'm gonna throw a black and white filter on my movie and everyone's gonna think I'm like an artsy director now, which
It's
is
like a
which is
white
how,
girl's Instagram page.
Yeah. And so like that's what I thought this movie was gonna be like. It's like, oh, like look at me, so avant-garde with my black and white, and and a lot more went into that in this movie than I was expecting. Like how they filmed it in black and white, where I thought it was more of like it was just gonna be like a filter they put on it, and I was like, pretentious. But
Yeah.
this movie, it lent itself to being black and white, which is the thing I was most worried about. But it was really good. I liked the movie a lot because of the performances mostly.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie too. I definitely get what Jaden was saying about how it's like a puzzle. I definitely don't think I solved this puzzle. We've all watched this multiple times now, and yeah, I definitely don't feel any closer to solving it. But I have a lot of questions, and it made me think, which is not a typical like, movie experience for me. So
Mhm.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't know if
that's
I would watch it like once a year, maybe. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, yeah. I think it's ironic you saying that. Like you're Mr. Puzzle Man over there sitting with your Rubik's cube.
It's like literally
And,
fucking
like
funky
It's
shaped.
literally next to him right now. He has a
Yeah.
Rubik's cube.
yeah, and he's
All
like,
set
I
up.
didn't. Yeah, it was a puzzle, and
It's like
I
your favorite
like
thing to do is solving puzzles.
I like that. It made me think. So we've been reading articles and interviews and all kinds of stuff, and it's very obvious that they were intentional with a lot of stuff in the movie. And you
Yeah.
could watch Avatar or Transformers, and you get the clear impression that they're not intentional with deeper meanings and stuff. And I think that's really cool to dive into those.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
what's really interesting to talk when you were talking about it being in color, that was actually a question that came up by the financiers in pre-production. Can we put this on color film and then color correct it to black and white so that we can sell it better as color in other markets? And they're like, no, we using to get the look that we want, it has to be in black and white, shot that way.
Yeah,
we
and
can't correct it.
they're saying it was like
afterwards.
it'd be like this weird bastardized version of the movie being available. It's
Yeah.
like so it was designed to be in black and white, and then but they're somewhere in like South Africa. There's like this color version of it, and it would just like ruin the kind of what they were going for with the movie in general. Like,
Yeah.
if you know that there's some other version of it that's like not the vision for the film at all, like it takes away from what was meant to be.
Yeah, like in the South Africa version, like Robert
Yeah.
Pattinson is dressed up as Mario, and you're just totally taken
Yeah,
way
yeah.
out of it. Like, I don't know if anyone's seen the meme picture of Robert Pattinson.
It's hilarious.
If
Yeah,
you're watching
like-
this on YouTube, I can put it up.
Yeah,
I can put it up in the little side there.
It'll be a pinned message.
It'll
Yeah.
pop up right now. Ding.
perfect. I can't wait to yeah.
And now it's going away.
Ba-da-da.
But yeah, that's actually color correct. He was actually dressed in like grays and blacks that would be specific to that time period. But what I wanted to talk about was this shoot in general was so they went in with all of their shots storyboarded, very meticulously designed. So this ended up only being a 34-day shoot. They shot it in 2018. Principal started in April. In Nova Scotia, Canada, they shot most of it on this little outcropping where they built all of the buildings. Everything
Yeah.
was like they basically just built a scaffold and then wrapped basically like a thin sheet that looked like brick for the lighthouse, and all of the other houses were.
Oh,
were
I didn't know
built.
that. I
Yeah.
thought they were real places. They look real.
They are meant to look real, but like
I
the,
assume
the,
so.
the locals actually wanted to keep the lighthouse, but it wasn't safe like to actually like keep it there. Like per code, it wasn't built
Oh,
to
really?
the standards that
Okay.
so they had to tear everything down. But all of those buildings there were made specifically for the film, and then everything else was shot on sound stages in Halifax.
Cool. Okay.
Like-
I did know. I thought it was when I read the like 35-day filming. I was like, are you kidding me? Like that's so fast. Like that seems like you hear about these movies. You know that with all the kind of post-production stuff, it takes forever for these movies to come out, and I was shocked at how fast this was, especially when they talk about like all the weather they have to deal with like during filming, because like a lot of this is filmed in like real weather,
Yeah, like
and
yeah,
and like they have equipment breaking all the time, and so to like get through it in 35 days, I think was really cool. Like I was
Yeah.
fascinated to find out it was that fast.
yeah. Like they had that one scene where they have Robert Pattinson walk out into the ocean. The lens kept fogging up. They shot that scene like 25 times. And what they
Yeah.
did is they actually had like a boom crane have the camera out over the water. And then they lit it with, what was it? Just two Air Maxes. It doesn't say what wattage they were, but they were 500 feet across the bay. That was the moonlight
Yeah.
that you saw in the shot. And that's why it looks a little eerie. It's not. It's a little bit artificial, but yeah, that walking out and using the cameras that they did, they cobbled together 3 different cameras from like 1910 and 1920s.
Yeah.
To try and use this film, and just a bunch of old vintage lenses.
You mentioned the lighting.
Uh-huh.
So I know that because they actually film black and white, and like you said, it's not like a filter. So like everything would have been underexposed, especially like at night. So they had to like really overlight everything. I was reading an article. It's like all the staff and like everyone on set were like wearing like sunglasses at night because it was so like brightly lit. That way it
Yeah.
would
I
that way
wear
the
my sunglasses.
dude, we're gonna get taken off YouTube.
It was
we didn't-
mumbly,
we
dude.
didn't license that song. But I thought that was like crazy. It's like because they had to make sure it was exposed correctly, and it's like it was like lit up like it was daytime for night scenes. I thought that was like crazy.
Yeah, and so what they would have done that regardless. They would have had to bring in a lot of light for any film shoot. The reason they had to do so much more for this was they were using an orthochromatic filter rather than shooting on orthochromatic film, which is orthochromatic film is not sensitive to all wavelengths of light. Older film stock was sensitive mainly to blues and greens, and reds were just registered as black. And that's also why you see a lot of dark rooms are lit with red light, because
Isn't that why like in I Love Lucy and stuff, they would wear like blue lipstick because the black and white film wouldn't pick up. It would look like they were wearing black
Yeah,
lipstick if
they're-
they wore red lipstick.
like
I think
all
that's
of it,
crazy. Yeah.
and all of it, like the reason why old Hollywood is like pancake makeup is because they didn't like how their faces looked so
Mhm.
rugged. Like the reason they chose orthochromatic film is because reds and rose, basically like on Caucasian faces with like pinks, they'll just turn black. So you see like every single little pore, and so they use that as for to be true to the period that the film would have been, like the film that would have been available in like 1890, but also to create this aesthetic of this weary, worn down, rugged seamen like at sea, like complete. Yeah, exactly. Well, don't
I was
don't
waiting
worry.
for someone to say
Well,
that.
we'll get into Jung in a couple parts later, but yeah, it's interesting how it worked both ways. It helped their aesthetic, and it also was true to the time period. But
I think it was cool, like reading more about like the kind of camera or the film. Or it's like it talked about how it picked up blue like best, and it's weird to think of a black and white film like how it reacts to color, because you just go into it thinking like, oh, it's just black and white. You don't really think of how it's gonna react to certain colors or whatever. And so like that was kind of doing more research on it. It was cool to like figure out like, oh, this is it. You have to take into account like what the actual people are wearing, what they look like, because it will look strange or different when it's filmed. And I think you don't think about that with black and white. You're like, oh, it's black and white. Who cares?
Yeah, I actually thought that they did it black and white because they couldn't afford color. So like maybe the budget was
no.
lower.
man.
Oh no,
That's
it's not that
There you
much
go,
different in
Speedo.
cost. Yeah,
So-
I actually looked up the cost for 1,000 feet of 5222 was like $800.
How much time can you record on 1,000 feet of film?
12 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's just the film
It's
stock.
amazing that you
yeah.
just know that.
Oh, yeah, well, I looked it up because that was something I needed to know in school. Like,
Right.
if I wanted 100 feet of 16, it was like $80 for 100 feet, and which is 7 minutes. So if you were going to shoot, we shot a lot of film in school. That was what was interesting about CU, is we worked with a lot of film rather than digital. You needed to have everything really planned out beforehand, which is why this film really resonates with me. Is you needed to know, because you were going to shoot so much more film and just waste money, because you had to buy the film for $80 and then get it developed for like another 80. So for 7 minutes of film, and you're making a 5-minute short, you either needed to buy 2 rolls and shoot coverage for everything. You're looking at $300. Like,
Yeah.
that's a project.
And that
in school.
includes like reshoots and stuff like that potentially, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like you didn't have time for reshoots. We could shoot on weekends. We had to reserve all of the equipment,
Yeah, yeah.
and the only time you could get everyone together was on the weekends. And then you shot the film, and then you sent it out to process for a week, and then you came back and then you edited it. And if it didn't turn out the way you were, or you have a different idea now, you've wasted like a week and a half of production, and you started like a project would normally take like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that's an assignment, typical assignment type length in a lot of these classes. So that's why I know that and wanted to see like how expensive it was. And like,
speaking of it being developed, I was reading that. So like they would usually get like dailies back, and so like the director will go over them and figure out what he likes, what he
Mhm.
doesn't like. And they were talking about they had to ship the film to like somewhere in California to have
Yeah.
it developed, and so they weren't really dailies. They'd get them back like a week later. And
Yeah.
that's what still like it's a kind of astounding to me that they filmed this in 35 days because you wouldn't really know how a scene looked until a week later. And what if it's all wrong? And
Yeah.
you're like crap. Well, we have to redo this. And so it's like that's why it's crazy to me. This is 35 days, and they're doing this all with old equipment, and you don't get to just go back and like look at it with like digital film or like like when it's done digitally, you can't just go back and be like, oh well, we'll redo this because I don't like it. It's like you didn't know until a week later. Like that's crazy to me.
Yeah, and there was another place that would develop this film in Toronto, I want to say, but they didn't have quite the quality standards that the place in California did.
Yeah, fuck Canada.
And it was, I mean, that's where they shot it, so I don't
filmed-
really
it's
think
filmed
that's
in
like,
Canada.
yeah.
I don't give a shit.
But they sent it to California. It was way more expensive. But yeah, they would upload the digitals and then send them to the directors, and then they'd also have to wait for the 4K uploads, and then go from there, like to see like as close as possible what the stills would look like.
Right.
But what was like, and I forgot, we were talking about like why this film was lit the way it needed to be was because although they weren't using orthochromatic film, they were going for that look. So they had a filter, an orthochromatic filter that would mimic that film stock back in the day because orthochromatic film isn't available anymore. So the filter actually reduced the amount of light coming through. So they needed so much more light. Like talking about how they couldn't even see each other, Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Like when you have those lanterns sitting on the table. That's an 8K watt
I saw. Yeah, it's
halogen
like,
bulb.
it's
Or 800, I'm sorry,
800 watt. Yeah.
Yeah, an 800 watt halogen bulb just sitting on a table between two people that can't
So
see
bright,
each other. The other thing that was really cool, like not only was everything made for the film, but so was the lens.
Yeah, I want to talk. There's this. The opening shot it's like a shot on the island that they're going to, and it's kind of like blurry in the edges, and it's shot with a Petzval lens, is what I found, which is created in like 1870 is when it was first developed. So they didn't use an actual like one that was made back then. They recreated it. But that's why it kind of has like that blurry look on it. That's why I like appreciate this movie being in black and white because everything done in it was like done to the period, so it looks real. Like it looks like it came out in a long time ago. It doesn't look like a movie that came out just a couple years ago.
Yeah, even the film stock.
It's very authentic. Yeah, that's the word I was searching for. It feels authentic.
Yeah, definitely. And 5222, double X 5222, the film stock that they used, it's the same film stock that it's been chemically since 1950.
Oh, that's nutty.
Yeah, so that's they got, I mean, what is it? That's halfway to 1890 from now, right? Or
Yeah.
I guess that's actually like it's closer to 1890 than it is 2020.
Yeah.
Using a film from 1950. But yeah, so that lens was made specifically for the film by authentic the people in charge of like making those lenses, and like it was like $250,000.
Whoa. Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a lot because this movie had a budget of $4 million, which is interesting. So he did The Witch before this.
Yeah.
Which is the same budget. But yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, that's when
That's so strange because they definitely shot.
That's what my
on it.
research. That's what I concluded.
They
But-
shot on an Arimax because or an Airflex because for budget constraints, whereas on this one they used film. That's so strange that it was actually the same budget then.
Okay,
Because
well,
they, I mean,
well, now you got me nervous that I looked up the wrong thing or something. I usually I like because I say this every time. I like looking at the stats for these movies, and so when I was looking, it said it. I found the same budget. They were both $4 million, but I know at least this one, the Lighthouse was $4 million. So to spend $200,000 on just a lens is like that's a huge portion of your budget.
not only a lens but a working lens.
Yeah.
That thing was rated as 6K wattage. It it wasn't deemed safe to actually film in front of it because it was so hot.
Wow.
The only time that they did it, because the only way it worked was the scene where Robert Pattinson is below him and Willem Dafoe is naked above. And I have this,
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about.
well, we'll talk about it, but I just want to talk about this quote from the DP. He's like, "There's Willem with a sock on his genitals, slathered in sun ocean on a freezing night in front of a Fresno lens and a lighthouse made of frickin' scaffolding." There's definitely some unusual stuff.
Yeah. I think it's so cool that like because you don't like know that when you watch this movie. You're just like, oh, I mean, you're just sitting there watching a movie, and then when you realize all this stuff that goes into it, like I didn't realize like how the lighting and the lenses needed to be in order for them to like put this on film the way they wanted it.
Oh yeah.
And you don't like realize all this behind the scenes stuff that takes place. You just watch it, and you're just like, okay, like
It was like with Under the Skin, the deformed guy who was walking naked in the field at 2 in the morning or whatever.
Yeah.
They had to
Yeah.
like
he
shoot
talks
that.
about
and
he's like
freezing.
it's freezing.
Yeah, you don't think about that stuff.
Because you're
but
just
yeah.
watching the movie, you have no kind of concept of, like what the weather is or anything like
Yeah.
that, or you just watch it and you're like, okay, this just makes sense for the narrative or whatever. You don't realize all the behind the scenes stuff, and
Yeah.
that's crazy to me.
Yeah, and so another really cool product of shooting with these lenses is they ended up shooting in a ratio of 1.19 to 1, which is almost square. And the reason that it was 119 to 1 is because back in the day, on a film strip you had the sound as well. So that was picked up magnetically and run at the same time as the film. So that little strip on the side actually squeezed the frame so it wasn't I can't remember what it would have been, something more like not even like 1.43. Like just think about 1.43. That side is now being taken up by the sound strip and squeezing it. So part of the reason is they did that for period accuracy, but they also did it because they were shooting so many shots that were up and down. They were shooting the Lighthouse, so it was very vertical. And so not only was, it's a little bit wider than it is tall, but when you shoot with a lens, because of the optics of how a lens works, it's actually larger, taller, than what the frame would look like.
Yeah, because I looked that up too. It's like the 1.19 to 1 ratio, and I was like, just make it a square. But because I don't know why. I don't know why you wouldn't just make it 1 to 1. But now that you bring that up, that makes more
They
sense to
didn't
me.
think they could get away with it. That was part of it. They didn't think that like it would be financially viable, that people would want to see a film that was completely square.
Do you think that makes a huge difference?
I don't think
then?
it matters at
Yeah.
all.
I think it makes some
Because
difference.
it wasn't until like a ways through the movie that I like kind of noticed. I was like, oh, it's like
I
not
noticed
it's not
right
1 to
away.
1.
I
Like,
noticed immediately
Oh.
that it was not
think
like
it
a
being-
widescreen.
I literally don't pay attention to that shit
Yeah.
ever when I watch.
I wonder
a
if-
movie.
I
But
think
it's-
subconsciously
yeah.
you do notice.
Yeah,
I
you
that's-
know?
don't think I do. 'cause
That's the
I-
thing.
You guys are just out. I thought it was like a normal movie.
Interesting.
Until
Okay.
You just brought this up. So
Yeah, I don't know that I would have made a difference to me if it was
Huh.
1 to 1. But I'm just saying it's like because I was wondering, it's like why make it just slightly different? But if some bigwig thinks it's financially better to film in that way, then go for it.
Right.
I'm just saying I don't think I would have cared either way.
yeah.
Well, they had to save money somehow, so they saved money on black and white. They saved money on the
Yeah.
aspect ratio.
They did not save money on black.
Dang.
I don't know why you keep saying that.
Well, the color cost extra.
And so with the aspect ratio that they were using, because it was such a small frame, they storyboarded everything for the cinematography as thinking of portraits. And one of my favorite shots is generally the thumbnail that you see everywhere. It's both of them, both Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, staring off at the tender at the beginning of the film. And they're both staring right at the camera, but not doing anything, not saying anything. And that's I love that shot.
We're gonna go against the grain and not use that in the thumbnail. I think we'll find
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, we're gonna fill it
Can we
full
use
of
the
dicks.
mermaid's?
Yeah, it's gonna be dicks and vaginas. Like, that's the thumbnail, because that's all this movie is about.
We're gonna put like big censor bars over it, and then people will see it and be like, "Whoa, what is this about?"
Yes. And then they're actually gonna watch it and like, this was bullshit.
yeah, not exciting.
Where's Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah, right.
I've been sweet if she was a mermaid, dude.
But yeah, so there's all of the way that they framed everything then was around this idea of claustrophobia, being trapped inside by using the edges of the frames to keep them close and in proximity with each other. So
That's neat.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that you're creating a lot of visual tension by putting them in uncomfortable positions that people wouldn't normally be at.
Yeah.
They sit
like
around
watching
like
this movie makes you feel uncomfortable.
It's like watching this movie. You are in the aspect ratio yourself.
Yeah, you're
Isolated from
you're
everything.
feeling it. That
Because no, I get what you're saying. Because there's a lot of scenes where they're like having dinner together, and they're like the table is tiny. They're like really close, and then there's a lot of scenes where like they're they're really close, like they're cuddled up together.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, it does. Everything is like pushed like way in for this movie for sure. And obviously that's why they picked that aspect ratio. But those, 'cause that's what I'm saying. It's like that's why I think it lends itself to this movie, because if this is widescreen and you just put them really close to each other and there's all this like dead space in the shot, it doesn't look as good.
Yeah, or it says something completely different. What it says is, why are they so unnaturally close to each other, and yet there's all of this big space. It's a completely different tone with
Right.
what they're trying to aim for. Like the frame actually reflects the idea of being trapped alone on an island. Like these are the bounds. They're very small, and there's nowhere to go. Versus like here's two men very close to each other, and you can go anywhere. So why are they? It's a more confusing type of a visual trick that the mind is playing on you. Why are they doing that? You're asking different questions and coming to different conclusions because of that.
Right.
So, Jaden, you didn't notice the aspect ratio difference.
No, I did not.
Do you think that you would have, if it was widescreen, do you think it would have been a different feeling scene when they're sitting at the table if it was widescreen and it didn't feel as, like, claustrophobic? Do you think you would have noticed at all?
I mean, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much, yeah. But I still don't think I would have pinpointed the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
I definitely
Yeah.
went back and,
Yeah.
especially the second time watching this, I thought a lot about like what would this look like in color, what would it look like widescreen, and every scene in my head, I'm just like, this would suck. Like if it
It's
was
interesting,
different.
yeah. 'Cause
And I guess I would have to really see a version of this film done that way to like really critique it, because I'm just doing it in my mind's eye. But I think that's what I'm saying is like at first I was like, this is a pretentious movie, because they did it in black and white, because they do a fun, funky aspect ratio, like old timey and everything. And I was like, ugh, like rolling my eyes. And
that's,
then,
yeah,
but,
that's what I thought
but
too.
then like rewatching it, I was like, okay, no, like it totally works.
Yeah.
To me, I think it totally worked.
Yeah, and old timey, that's how he designs everything. Like he doesn't like the idea of world building, because Eggers, Robert Eggers, the director, stresses out of the anxiety of creating a coherent world that breaks from the norm, like he was mentioning in contrast to himself, Guillermo del Toro, how he created a fictionalized environment in the Spanish Revolution. For like
Pan's Labyrinth.
yeah, for Pan's
Oh,
Labyrinth.
that's a great movie.
Yeah, it's
That's
not.
it's in Spanish, right?
It's
Oh, I
it's
love it.
it's actually we
Is that movie's? That's the one that's in
That's
Spanish,
all in
right?
Spanish.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
in
that movie
Spanish.
fucking sucks.
It's-
Oh, I like it a lot.
my
It's
gosh.
it's not very good. We could talk about it later. though.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We can do that.
But yeah, so his idea is he wants to be very historically accurate, and so that's why the accents that both of them talk with are
They were really good.
yeah, they're really, and what they did is they actually drew on some journals that a writer in the 1860s, she did interviews with farmers and sailors of the time, and actually wrote in the vernacular, so that they could pull from that. Like, so Robert Pattinson's accent is based very specifically on a Maine farmer in the 1860s, and Willem Dafoe's dialogue is based on sailor jargon of the time.
Yeah, Captain Crunch. It's,
Captain Crunch.
yeah.
You know his full name is Horatio Magellan Crunch.
That's not true.
It is. I swear to God, look it up.
Oh my god.
That's
I
one of
really-
my one of my trivia facts I just keep in my pocket.
All right, if it's true, you put that in the thumbnail.
Okay. Well, fun fact. Yeah. So
Oh crap! It's right. It's Horatio Magellan Crunch.
so I wanted to. We were talking about the accents, and we had mentioned when we did our Avatar commentary that it sounds like they were just told to be like vaguely Native American, like that's how the accents sound. Like, and then I watched Lighthouse, and I'm like, you can tell there's so much effort put into how these accents sound, and they have to be just so, and it's like important to these characters because like they come from like these different backgrounds, and if they just sound the same, it wouldn't make any sense. And so you can just tell there's a lot of effort put into
It was really
how they sound.
intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a detail like done very much on purpose.
Yeah. For a moment, I actually thought you were talking about Defoe and Pattinson as coming from different backgrounds, because they do, like, in terms of acting traditions. Defoe comes from theater, and Pattinson doesn't. So Defoe loves rehearsing and would just over and over and over. Pattinson hates it
Yeah.
with a passion.
So they met with Eggers.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to rehearse for like a couple weeks, and Pattinson was like, No, hates it.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do it at all.
Yeah, apparently there's some issues with the new Batman film. Due to
Really?
that. Yeah, him and apparently he's
Mm.
got some problems with some opioids.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
No, I
he's-
didn't know that.
yeah.
Oh,
But I
okay.
just know that he was saying, he was like, well, okay, if I do a rehearsal and I like something I did, he's like, all I'm going to be focused on is if I can do it again when it's the actual take. And he was like, it stresses me out too much. Like, I want to be able to just go into it like kind of as blind as you can, and then just like give my performance, which I get. But yeah, I did think that was interesting, and so they kind of toned down the rehearsal. But yeah, I
Yeah.
know Defoe was like, no, like let's rehearse it. I'm all about this, and yeah, they do. Yeah, I guess I was talking about the characters come from different backgrounds, but yeah,
Mhm.
they definitely are two different like acting styles. I read it. This is so gross. Robert Pattinson would like to get himself in the mood for a scene. He would like stick his fingers down his throat and like just like to I don't know
Make-
become more intense or
Yeah,
something
make
like
make
that.
himself gag. He would retch. Like he
Yeah.
said he was like had drunk 80% of the shoot. Something
Yeah.
some crazy number
What the
like that.
Was he really?
Yeah, like he was.
Oh, I didn't know
He
that.
was literally drinking like all of those. Like as he got progressively and more crazy throughout the
Yeah.
film, he was just drinking like the whole time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered
because it was so good.
there was some actual influence there. But yeah, there's a part where like Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are like kind of cuddled up, they're like holding each other. And before the scene, Robert Pattinson's like sticking his fingers down his throat, and Willem Dafoe's like, "Don't you fucking puke on me!" Like,
Yeah, like, yeah. He's like looking at Robert Eggers. He's like, help me.
Yeah,
Like
he's
I
like,
can't do
Are
that.
you kidding me with this guy? And I don't know. I think actors are weird a lot. Like, don't just be a person. But it
Yeah,
is
some of
interesting
them.
to just like how different both those actors were like approaching these roles. I thought it was kind of a neat little tidbit for
Yeah.
sure.
I did like that. And what another thing I really liked about this is, in conjunction with the portraiture idea of how they were shooting everything, is you have a lot of painting influences that inspired certain shots and certain motifs in general, like the Proteus design of Willem Dafoe when he's dressed when he's got his reveals himself to Robert Pattinson's character, where he's got the shells and the crabs and all of the tentacles. It's based on um, an engraving by Albrecht Dürer called the Sea Monster, and that's how they got the Proteus design
Oh,
for
word.
him.
That's
yeah.
cool.
And I think the most obvious one is it looked like a painting, so I wouldn't be surprised if everyone immediately knows what scene I'm talking about. Is that one where Willem Dafoe is naked and the light is beaming out
That's
of his
exactly what I was hoping you were
Yeah.
gonna say.
Oh,
Yeah.
the dream that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's actually taken from a painting by Sasha Snyder called Hypnos. And it's interesting in the painting, who's clothed and who isn't is actually switched. So the boy is naked and being entranced by this gaze of this fully clothed, like, I mean, he almost looks like a monk with all of his robes and long beard. But it's very like androerotic.
It sounds very pedophilic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It's interesting how they changed that for this film, but still took aesthetic inspiration from
Dude,
it.
Willem Dafoe looks great in that scene. I don't know if he worked out for this. I was like, hey, he's like a little
Yeah,
yoked
he's
up
just
for
kinda
it.
like-
He does yoga every day.
I think
like,
he's just in shape.
Okay,
Yeah.
constantly,
I was
Yeah,
just
he does-
expecting flabby old man, and I was like, oh, okay, look at Willem Dafoe. Yeah.
yeah, I think he does. He actually does a very specific type of yoga every day.
Probably butt yoga.
Yeah, it's not a type, but
I think it is.
I mean, looking at it, I would say is probably like a form of butt yoga.
Yeah.
I think, looking at that body.
So
Yoga's
I don't-
fucking hard.
I don't know where I read this or heard this, but it was some kind of take on like if you want to have a really good-looking film, you should be able to pause it at any point, and that still should be something that you like would want to hang in your house or something like that. You know, it should look artistic enough. Like every shot, you know, if you can pause it and you're like, dang, like that looks really good, then you've filmed a good-looking movie. And this movie, I think, definitely nails that. I think you could hit pause, and I'd be like, oh, like that's cool. Like that looks like a photo you could put up somewhere, like probably in some hipster coffee house or something like that. But
Yeah.
I think that's a cool little thing. I think about that when I watch movies. It's like, if I paused here, like would it look that good? Maybe not. But I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you can't have every scene be something you'd hang on a wall. But I think that's a. If I were gonna make a film, I would have that in the back of my mind. Like, does this still like look good?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's the stills, like especially in this film, are meant to convey a certain idea or a certain mood. So all of it all of it just looks so cinematic for that reason. And but the other painting that inspired him was there's a Belgian symbolist painter by the name of Jean Delville, who made a painting called Prometheus, and it's literally a painting of the myth of the Titan grabbing hold of what looks like a star and bringing it down to the people of Earth, and it's a beautiful painting. But that's also where part of where he took inspiration for the myth for
Prometheus.
this.
Yeah,
for
because I know
for
that's
this
a
film.
lot in.
All right, and with that, I think we're wrapping this one up. This is going to be a multi-part series because this is just a dense movie to go over, and we'll be here for 5 hours talking about it. So, with that, I just want to thank everyone for listening. I'm your host Connor, and my co-host Jaden, and our producer McKinnon,
What's up?
and then former guest Calvin.
Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, thank you for listening.